Finally, Lunata said, "If they had a rooster, don't you think we'd know? Don't you think the whole neighborhood would know?" Hmm, we all said, "Good point." But then my mom pipes up with, "Maybe they got it deyodeled. Like they debark dogs?" "A deyodeled rooster," my dad says. Like it's the most ridiculous thing he's ever heard. Then he looks at my mom. Then he looks at my mom and realizes that he'd be way better off going along with her de-yodeled idea than making fun of her. He says. "I've never heard of such a thing, but maybe so." Lunetta shrugs and says to my mom, "So just ask them, why don't you? Call up Mrs. Baker and ask her." "Oh," my mom says. "Well, I'd hate to call her eggs into question. It doesn't seem very polite, now does it? Just ask Matt or Mike," I say to Lunetta. She scowls, she, she scowls at me and hisses, "Shut up." "What? What I do now?" "Haven't you noticed I haven't been going down there, you idiot?" "Lunetta," my mom says, like this is the first time she'd heard my sister talk to me or something. "Well, it's true. How can you not have noticed?" "I was gonna ask you about that, honey. Did something happen?" Lunetta stands up and shoves her chair in. "Like you care," she snaps, and charges down to her room. "Oh boy," my dad says. Mom says, "Excuse me," and follows Lunetta down the hall. When my mother's gone, my dad says, "So, son, why don't you just ask Julie?" "Dad, it's just a little question, Bryce. No harm, no foul." But it'll get me a half-hour answer." He studies me for a minute, then says, "No boy should be this afraid of a girl." "I'm not afraid of her." "I think you are." "Dad!" "Seriously, son, I want you to get us an answer. Conquer your fear and get us an answer. To whether or not they have a rooster?" "That's right." He gets up and clears his cereal bowl, saying, "I've got to get to work and you've got to get to school. I'll expect a report tonight." Great, just great. The day was doomed before it had started. But then at school, when I told Garrett about what had happened, he just shrugged and said, "Well, she lives right across the street from you, right?" "Yeah, so?" "So just go look over the fence." "You mean spy?" "Sure. But how can I tell if one of them's a rooster or not? Roosters are, I don't know, bigger, and they have more feathers." "Feathers? Like I've got to go and count feathers?" "No, stupid. My mom says that the male's always brighter." Then he laughs and says, although in your case, I'm not so sure." "Thanks. You're giving me big time help here, buddy. I really appreciate it. Look, a rooster's gonna be bigger and have brighter feathers, those long ones in the back. They're redder or blacker or whatever. And don't roosters have some rubbery red stuff growing off the top of their head? And some of their neck too? Yeah, the rooster's got all sort of rubbery red stuff all around its face." "So you're saying I'm supposed to look over the fence for big feathers and rubbery red stuff? Well, come to think of it, chickens have that rubbery red stuff too, just not as much of it." I rolled my eyes at him and was about to say, "Forget it. I'll just ask Julie," but then he says, "I'll come up with you if you want." "Seriously?" "Yeah, dude, seriously." And then, my friend, is how I wound up spying over the baker's back fence with Garrett Anderson at 3:30 that afternoon. Not my choice of covert operations, but a necessary one in order to report back to my dad that night at dinner. We got there fast too. The bell rang and we basically charged off campus because I figured if we got to the baker's quick enough, we could look and leave before Julie was anywhere near her house. We didn't even drop off our backpacks. We went straight down the alley and started spying. It's not really necessary to look over the baker's fence. You can see almost as well looking through it. But Garrett kept sticking his head up, so I figured I should too. Although in the back of my mind, I was aware that Garrett didn't have to live in this neighborhood. I did. The backyard was a mess. Big surprise. The bushes were out of control. There was some kind of hodgepodge wood and wire coop off to one side, and the yard wasn't grass. It was highly fertilized dirt. Garrett was the first to notice their dog, sacked out on a patio between two-story looking folding chairs. He points at him and says, "You think he's gonna give us trouble? We're not gonna be here long enough to get in trouble. Where are those stupid chickens? Probably in the coop," he says, then picks up a rock and throws it at the mess of plywood and chicken wire. At first, all we hear is a bunch of feathers flapping. But then, one of the birds comes fluttering out. Not very far, but enough so we can see it's got feathers and rubbery red stuff. "So?" I ask him, "Is that a rooster?" He shrugs. "Looks like a chicken to me." "How can you tell?" He shrugs again. "Just does." We watch it scratching at the dirt for a minute. And then I ask, "What's a hen anyway?" "A hen? Yeah, you got roosters, you got chickens, and then there's hens. What's a hen?" "It's one of those," he says, pointing into the baker's backyard. "Then what's a chicken?" He looks at me like I'm crazy. "What are you talking about? Chickens. What's a chicken?" He takes a step back from me and says, "Brycey boy, you're losing it. That's a chicken." He stoops down to pick up another rock, and he's just about to let it fly when the sliding glass door to the back patio opens up and Julie steps outside. We both talk, and as we're checking her out through the fence, I say, "When did she get home?" Garrett grumbles, "While you were losing it about chickens." Then he whispers, "But hey, this will work great. She's got a basket, right? She's probably coming out to collect the eggs." First, she had to get all mushy with that mangy mutt of hers. She got down and nuzzled and ruffled and patted her and hugged, telling him what a good boy he was. And when she finally let him go back to sleep, she had to stop and coo at the bird Garrett had scared out. And then she started singing. At the top of her lungs, she goes, "I've got sunshine on a cloudy day. When it's cold outside, I've got the month of May. I guess you'd say, what can make me feel this way? My girls, talking about my little girls." She looks inside the coop and coos, "Hello, Flo. Good afternoon, Bunny. Come on out, Pumpkin." The coop wasn't big enough for her to walk in. It was more like a mini lean-to shed that even her dog would have trouble crawling in. Does that stop Julie Baker? No. She gets down on her hands and knees and dives right in. Chickens are squawking and flapping out. And pretty soon the yard's full of birds, and all we can see of Julie is her poop-covered shoes. That's not all we can hear, though. She's warbling inside that coop, going, "I don't need money. No fortune or fame. I got all the riches, baby. Anyone can claim. Well, I guess you'd say, what can make me feel this way? My girls, talking about my little girls. My girls." At this point, I wasn't checking the chickens out for rubbery red stuff or feathers. I was looking at the bottom of Julie Baker's feet, wondering how in the world a person could be so happy tunneling through a dilapidated chicken coop with poop stuck all over her shoes. Garrett got me back on track. "They're all chickens," he says. "Look at them." I quit checking out Julie's shoes and started checking out birds. The first thing I did was count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All accounted for. After all, how could anyone forget she'd hatched at 6? It was the all-time school record. Everyone in the county had heard about that. but I was not really sure how to ask Garrett about what he had said. Yeah, they were all chickens, but what did it mean? I sure didn't want him coming down on me again. But it still didn't make sense. Finally, I asked him, "You mean there's no rooster?" "Correctamundo." "How can you tell?" He shrugged. "Roosters strut." "Strut?" "That's right. And look, none of them had long feathers, or very much of that rubbery red stuff." He nodded. "Yeah, they're definitely all chickens."